Welcome to Forum 360. I'm Mark Welfley, your host today. Thank you for joining us for our global outlook with a local view. Can you name the martial art that is considered by some to be the safest combat sport? It's an Olympic sport. It focuses on kicks and most coming from the less powerful lead leg. It teaches focus, discipline, respect, communication, confidence, and honesty. All prized qualities of successful leaders. The answer is Taekwondo. Roughly translated means kicking, punching, and the art or way of. Former President Obama practices Taekwondo, and so do an increasing number of children, adults, and even families. The number of martial arts studios is expected to increase by about 7% this year. What's with this rise in Taekwondo? Today, we will talk to one of our country's most prominent Grandmasters of Taekwondo. He lives right here in Northeast Ohio. His name is Grandmaster Ryan Andrachik. Grandmaster Andrachik, an 8th degree or Dan black belt, has personally produced more than 100 master instructors and more than 1,000 black belt students, including numerous champions and junior national champions each year. He is the founder of Asian Sun Martial Arts with multiple centers across Northeast Ohio, which this month celebrates its 16th anniversary. Welcome, Grandmaster Andrachik.
Well, thank you. That is quite the introduction. I hope my interview lives up to the forward.
We're glad to have you here, and happy anniversary or birthday.
Well, thank you.
Pleasure to your center. I'm interested in hearing a little bit about your background.
Okay.
And how you came to love or appreciate Taekwondo.
Okay, well, how do I start? I guess at the beginning. My mom made me do it. Pretty simple. I'm an only child. Not am I the only child. Not only am I the only child, I'm the only child, only nephew, only grandson. So no siblings, not a lot of cousins. So my mom got me in when I was young, 6 years old, and I started at the local YMCA. And let me tell you, that was a experience. That was 1977, 77. That was quite the experience. Hardwood floors. I was the only kid in class. It was a little rough. But then I did that for a little bit. I studied Kung Fu for a number of years at a different school, and I finally ended up at my master instructor's school, Grandmaster Il-Ju Kim. Grandmaster Il-Ju Kim is a really, really cool. It's pretty neat how it happened. He came here in 1964. He is the highest ranking black belt at the time in Ohio and United States. He's just an amazing person, amazing instructor. And I was lucky enough that he opened a school 15 minutes from my house. So right place, right time. That's how it works. So I'm very fortunate. And that's my background. So I was a competitor. I loved competing. And I started working for Master Kim when I was already black belt, obviously, but I was 18 years old, and I worked for him full time from 18 till 22, with the whole goal being someday I was going to open my own school. So it was February 1994, and he pulls me into the office, and he had been really hard on me, like the previous couple of months, just really cracking down on me, making sure that, like, if there was anything wrong with my classes, I would know about it. Not after class, like right there on the spot during class, fix this. Master Kim always had a great way of ripping you down to your core and then building you back up before you left, so you felt great. But in February 1994, he goes, okay, you're ready. You're ready to open a school. So I opened my first school in Hudson, April 1st, 1994, right at Acme Plaza. So from there, Master Kim is from South Korea originally. So he was in the process of moving back to South Korea in 94, 95, 96. And he had 2 other schools. He had his main one at Broadview Heights. He had another one. So I took over his one school in 95, and in 1996, I was running all of his schools. So from there, I was 22 years old. I felt like I was a great instructor, but I was learning a lot as I went, as far as really the big difference between then and now is customer service. Simple things like notifying people when you're going to be closed instead of just slapping up a sign 3 nights before you close, right? Just really the things that are common sense now, but they weren't really common sense when I was that age. So my story in short goes, I had 1 school to 2 to 3 to 2 to 11, back down to 2 to 1. So by 2001, I was down to 1 school. And I really thought, kickboxing was really big in the late 90s. And we opened a series of kickboxing schools. We had like 10 or 11 just kickboxing only locations. It was awesome until I broke my ankle. So when I broke my ankle, our kickboxing population went from like 500 to 400 to 300 to 200 to like, it was rough. So there I was with a broken ankle, feeling terrible because I felt like I was letting all my students down. So I was sitting watching my class. I'm like, our children's class is okay, but it's not awesome. I'm going to take this time. I'm going to make it amazing. So I dedicated everything into revamping how we taught children, how we taught family. Like family class, which is one of our staples nowadays, didn't exist. There was no family class. So it took that broken ankle, like I said, right place, right time, right circumstance. That broken ankle was my way to redo everything that I was doing currently, because how we were teaching was based on how it was taught in the 60s, 70s, 80s. It was a very different time in the early 2000s. Families are busier, they're scheduled or overscheduled. So we changed our schedule and our format so that families could do it. And it was more convenient, and that's the customer service I was talking about. So I had my 1 school in 2001, 2002. I was perfectly happy. We relocated it to where we are now on Darrow Road. And my wife and I are like, let's just make this big super school. So we got 10,000 square feet. We're just going to have 1 big school until one of my best friends, who is also my Taekwondo junior, comes up to me and says, sir, I'd really like to do what you do. Like, okay, what does that mean? Well, I'd really like to run a school. I'm like, oh God, no, I just got out of this. So we took a gamble, and that was the Beechwood location. So we opened our Beechwood location, and it went really well in the first 2 months. We were 0 to 50 students in 2 months, and then it stalled at 50. Like, oh God, what have I done? This is a failure. I'm going to pay for this out of my pocket until the lease is up. So then I figured it out. I figured out what was missing, and it took off. It went to 100 to 150 to 200 to 300. It was massive, right? And then from there, we had a lot of black belts at the time that really wanted to do what I did. So we opened 2 more at the same time. We opened our Broadview school and our Talmadge school. That would have been March of 2007. So we went from 1 to 2 to 4, and now we have 9 locations. So that's the long version, but that's how it happened.
So you mentioned customer success, customer service as the key to success. What other secrets are there to running a real effective and successful martial arts, or in this case Taekwondo school?
I think it's, whether it's martial arts or it's a bakery, I think it's all the same. I think you really need to love what you do and have a passion for it. That's really important. you need to care about what everyone, their experience. So I am so after a great student experience. That's my whole goal. And just to let you in a little bit behind the curtain, we have staff meetings twice a week, Monday, Tuesday at our Hudson location. All of our head instructors come there, all of our full-time staff come there, and we have customer service meetings pretty much for 4 hours a day, 2 days. So we spend 8 hours a week just on how to make the experience better. That can range from how do we run this class a little better, how do we run this drill a little bit better. We have an upcoming tournament. What are we going to do to make sure that all of our guests at our tournament and all of our competitors feel great, have a super experience? Sure. That's really what it's about. It's just planning and passion. You have to be passionate about it, but the first thing I said was, what changed for me was just caring about the customer experience and the student experience. That's what I care about.
Yeah. Makes a lot of sense. Turning our attention to martial arts and the different disciplines. When I was preparing for this interview, like the first question that comes to my mind is, so what's the difference between karate, jiu-jitsu,
Sure.
Brazilian this, and
Sure.
So can you separate out Taekwondo in its discipline? How's it different from karate? Or just take me through kind of how a layman would go about understanding these different disciplines.
I'll give you the easy version.
Yes.
Okay. So martial arts all started in China. Period. Dot. It's all started in China. So it went from, we'll say, China here, and then you have Japan here, and Korea is the peninsula. So it went from China to Japan, and then it kind of went like this to Korea. So if you look at it, they all have kicking, punching, blocking. It's just how the people teach it and how the culture is. So for example, in China, when they bow, it's very loose. It's very, it's very just relaxed. Okay. In Japan, when they bow, it is very, very rigid. Korea is not this and not this, but it's kind of in between, right? Because again, you have the mainland, you have Japan here, and you have Korea, the peninsula, which is in between. So if we look at something like blocking, a Chinese block would be very fluid, right? A Japanese block is going to be very precise. Korean block is right in the middle. Snaps at the end, very fluid. So that's, the culture definitely influences the martial art. Definitely influences the martial art. But in the end, they all have a punch, they all have a kick, they all have a block, right?
Yeah, sure.
And, an example, my instructor, so is it okay if I talk about my lineage?
Oh, yeah.
That'll clear it up a little bit?
For sure.
So my instructor is Il-Ju Kim, Grandmaster Il-Ju Kim. So his instructor is Grandmaster Ro, right? Now, Master Ro learned from Gichan Funakoshi, the founder of Shotokan Karate. Okay. So he was in Japan, learned from the founder of Shotokan Karate, took that back to Korea, right? Renamed the Japanese names Korean names, but it's the same thing, right? Even the forms that we do, some of the belt requirements are so parallel with Shotokan requirements. So it's difficult to separate out what is Taekwondo, what is karate. Yeah. Taekwondo, as far as a sport, is very unique, and you can spot that a mile away. Red chest guard, blue chest guard, helmet, a certain set of rules. So that's easy to spot. But if you were just looking at a traditional Taekwondo class, a traditional karate class, you may have a difficult time identifying which one's which.
We're talking today to Grandmaster Ryan Andrachik, who is an 8th degree black belt and owner of Asian Sun martial arts studios, 9 of them in the Northeast Ohio area. And I wanted to ask you about the emergence of UFC and mixed martial arts and how that has impacted Taekwondo and the traditional martial arts as we know them.
Okay, that's a great question. As I was saying earlier, you can only kick and punch so many different ways, right? So whether it's karate, Taekwondo, Kung Fu, you can only kick and punch so many different ways. Taekwondo is a phenomenal base to learn. So because you're learning not only the kicking and punching, but you're learning the self-discipline that goes with it and not to use it, right? But there are many, many successful UFC fighters that have Taekwondo black belts or traditional karate black belts. You know, they got their foundation. So if you look at, we'll take Asian Sun, for example. If the average student comes twice a week, all right? If you want to be a competitor, you're going to need to come a little bit more. So we have a special team program. Now that's 4 times a week. You want to be a national competitor? Well, now we got to even up our practice more, right? You want to be a referee? We have a referee program. You want to be a master instructor? We have a master instructors program. So there's all these different programs. UFC fighters are specialists. That's what they are. So they have taken your base of either a Taekwondo black belt, a kickboxing black belt, a jiu-jitsu black belt, and they are specializing in fighting. That's all they do. Mm-hmm. It is so difficult to be a UFC athlete. However much time you spend working on your Taekwondo skills or your karate skills, which they would just refer to as stand-up, sure, you need to spend the equal amount of time on your ground game, which would be grappling or jiu-jitsu, right? It's literally a full-time job, and not to mention nutrition and weight training. So how does it tie in? Well, Taekwondo and karate are fantastic bases. If that's the route somebody would want to go, that's you can't beat it.
Interesting. Thanks for that. No conversation, I guess, these days can be complete without talking about the pandemic and how it's helped, hurt, now regaining traction in various industries.
Right.
How about martial arts?
Well, I remember vividly having a meeting with my staff March of 2020. And this was when it was first rising. And we talk about that customer experience. Well, our customer experience was going to be, we're going to disinfect everything. We're going to make it so ridiculously clean, and we're going to do our best. But we were fully prepared to be shut down because we had a meeting the week before and said, look, guys, you need to make sure that you disinfect everything. We bought this extra cleaner because there is definitely a chance that we'll get shut down. Mm-hmm. And it happened. It happened. The governor shuttered all the businesses. So originally, our idea was, okay, well, it was only going to be for 2 weeks. That was the deal. It was only going to be for 2 weeks. We're gonna flatten the curve. And we started broadcasting Facebook Live classes from our Hudson school. Well, quickly we realized that it was not going to be a short time and that we needed a more interactive approach. So we pivoted to Zoom, and we started Zoom classes. And it was rough at first because I had no idea what I was doing. You look at I'm marveled by your studio. There's lights and monitors, everything. It's beautiful in here. I had to do this essentially in my garage. So I had my screen that was so I could see myself, and then I had another screen where I could see my class. And then by the time mid-pandemic, I had screen. So, I had 48 people on a Zoom class. There were some classes we had 70, 80 people in a class, which quickly we realized, oh my gosh, we can't get to everyone if we have 70 people in a class. So our Zoom schedule was very extensive. We had classes for white belts only, for yellow belts only, for orange belts only. And our guys were amazing. They would come in and just say hi to everyone, but via Zoom. Mm-hmm. So it was quite the experience. And we had to be innovative. We had to have a way for people to keep progressing even though there were no live classes. Mm-hmm. So it was rough, but I feel that we were really successful at it because we kept all those people involved. And honestly, it turned into my full-time job during the pandemic. I would, wake up, have breakfast, and do whatever I needed to do. Then from 2 o'clock to 8:30 at night, I was on Zoom. Mm-hmm. That was my job. So, yeah, it was quite the experience.
I want you to look into your looking glass 10 years into the future.
Okay.
And I want you to tell me where you'd like Taekwondo and martial arts to be in our culture? Where should it sit? What do you want its value to be?
Okay, that's pretty easy actually. I can do that. Taekwondo would be a traditional martial art, and a big part of a traditional martial art is teaching, as I said, the etiquette that goes with it, just common sense, opening doors for people, saying please, saying thank you. I think those core values are so important, and I feel like every day society is getting away from that, which is very troubling to me. I like my bubble inside of my schools where people are courteous toward each other, and they better be courteous toward each other. Now they're courteous toward each other. They're not rude to each other. This is so simple, but one of our huge rules for our staff: say good morning to each other. It's just how things should run. So if we could make martial arts bigger and have a bigger presence, I think society would be better off, because we're teaching these things, just how to be nice, how to be a good human being. So if we could somehow spread that where more people are doing it, I think we'll have a better society. That's my view.
Yeah, interesting. It seems counterintuitive, right? That it's a combat sport, yet the combat sport is teaching some of the softer, more polite ways of behavior.
Absolutely.
To all of us. I agree.
That's the way. The Japanese call it Bushido. That's the way of the warrior. That's the code.
You had mentioned earlier that your success is derived from, again, good customer service, and that you've developed classes for families. Is this a trend, do you think, that families as groups are seeking out opportunities like Taekwondo, or do you think this is just more specific to how you set up your class and some of the principles among which you run it?
I think a lot of martial arts schools try it, and I think a lot of martial arts schools fail at it, to be honest with you, because it is a lot of work and a lot of planning to run a good family class. And not just one, you have to exponentially, you have to be able to run classes, and we have to run the same class across our 9 schools. I think that most of our adult population is linked to a child or someone else in the program.
Sure.
Because as adults, I think I speak for every other adult. If I need to buy something for me, it's like this internal debate, and I just keep going back and forth. And my kids want, oh yeah, no problem. So for me to, I think adults with time, we're not only talking about the monetary value, but the time, because adults, we're strapped for time. But if I can work out at the same time my child's working out, and now that's my workout buddy, not only do I get the benefit of being in class with them, but I also get the benefit of the drive time to and from the school, and that's time I'll never get back. Yeah. Right? And that's what's so cool.
Sure. In the minute that we have left, can you share a success story with me? Talk to me about a student. You don't have to name that student, but just somebody who came to your to a class and you saw potential or didn't see potential. Or just tell me a success story.
100%. So there was a girl. She was, if we look white, yellow, orange, right? So a very beginner level, and she was taking her belt test, right? She was testing for her orange belt, and the board break was a back kick, right? And she hit the boards, didn't break. Hit the boards, didn't break. And her kick was right. She was just a little bit off. She probably hit it 5-6 times, right? So I went over, I'm like, she's crying at this point. She's like 9 years old, crying. Like, look, you can do this. I know you can do this. We're gonna get you through this. I promise you we're gonna do this. So she hits it again, doesn't break, hits it again, breaks. Yeah, the whole room's going crazy. And I'm tying her belt on her at the end of it, and she's just sobbing. I'm like, oh gosh, no. Because, it's always when we feel like everything's going wrong that we're actually learning the most, right? So I walked over to her parents, And I said, okay, look, here's what's probably going to happen. She's going to want to quit. I need you to not let her quit, because she had a bad experience today, but believe me, it's going to pay off. It's going to teach her persistence. You just got to work with me. Please, please, please don't let her quit from this. So like clockwork, she wanted to quit. Parents said no. Brought her to some more classes. We really worked there, encouraged her, build her confidence. That girl is a 5th degree black belt today.
I love it.
Right?
I love it. Congratulations.
Well, thank you.
On all your successes. While researching this interview about Taekwondo, the word empowerment kept coming to my mind. During these uncertain times, empowering ourselves and helping empower others, it seems, is something we could use a little bit more of. The self-confidence that comes from empowering our body and our mind and our spirit can be immeasurable and infinitely valuable. I'd like to thank Grandmaster Ryan Andrachik for being my guest today. This interview has been a real kick. Sorry, I couldn't resist that. Let's keep our minds open until next time on Forum 360.
Forum 360 is brought to you by John S. and James L. Knight Foundation, the Akron Community Foundation, Hudson Community Television, the Rubber City Radio Group, Shaw Jewish Community Center of Akron, Blue Green, Electric Impulse Communications, and Forum 360 supporters.